Now I'm going to begin the teardown of the front end of the vehicle. So just to recap in case you missed one of the other vehicles, so in order to remove this from the tub, it's just 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then once you remove those, you just wiggle this and it should slide forward. Then the shaft can just slide out, and then once it's out like this, you're just gonna turn it at least 90 degrees, let it dangle, and then once it's dangling, you can just remove that screw from the servo. So now we're gonna begin with the rest of the steps. So the first thing, the easiest thing to do is to just remove the dampers. That's after we have removed the front bumper. So front bumper was these 3 screws. You may have these. This had an RPM bumper, so we didn't have to remove them. We will have to remove these here. So we're gonna remove the dampers and then these 2 screws to remove the spring for the front bumper. So for this, we're gonna get started with our 2mm driver. And we will do this here, and then we will remove this one on this other side. Now, just to make this video a little shorter, I'm not going to remove the dampers completely, so I'm just going to tell you what to do. I'm going to leave them attached to the shock tower, and they'll just come off with the shock tower. But you would just remove that right in there. Now the other thing is the spring for the bumper. Well, before I go to that, so just remove that screw, and then these will come out. So we are going to remove these 2 here, and this will remove the bumper. So the bumper is attached by the 3 screws on the bottom and these 2 top screws, assuming you have the factory Traxxas bumper. If you do not, let's say you went with the RPM, which is what this one has now, then it's just the 2 screws on the bottom. And in order to open up the differential case, you do not need to remove this spring. I'm just removing it to show you. So that just slides in, slides out, and that is all. All right, so we're gonna pick this up, and this will just slide right out. We'll leave that there. There is a top and a bottom. The way you can tell is this indentation here. So this goes toward the bottom. All right, so at this portion, the sway bar was released along from the tub. There were these 2 screws that looked just like this that were here on the tub. Those little holes right in there, and that's what holds the sway bar. So because I have already removed those, that's why I don't have to worry about this. So now all you would have to do to remove the sway bar is remove these here. Now here's the thing, if you want to remove the entire assembly, remove these 2 here. If you do not want to remove the entire assembly, but you simply want to replace the sway bar itself, maybe with a lighter or a stiffer one, you would just remove these here. So you would loosen those and remove them right in here. And that would be it. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to say that you want to remove it all for whatever reason. Maybe you want it to handle more like a monster truck. Right? Have it sway a little more. You're running on loose dirt. If you're running on loose dirt, you may not need a sway bar. It depends on your application. Maybe you do, maybe not. Depends on the driving characteristics of your vehicle. But this would actually release the sway bar completely. I am not going to remove this one just to save time, but that's all you would have to remove, and this would be free. And that is it. So now at this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and remove one of these pins. So this will loosen loosen. Actually, I'm going to remove the link. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the link here. I apologize, I keep changing my mind. And the reason why is I'm just going to remove that entire side. So on the right side of the video, you will see the left side. That's because it's facing toward me. So that's something important to note. These are labeled left and right. Once you remove this link, we're very close to removing everything. Now, one thing to do before, let's just say you thought something was binding, just spin these and see if everything looks good, sounds good, and it does. If you think there's a problem, you want to replace these, then you move on to these steps, which will be to remove this, and then this will just slide. Now you can keep that pin in there, which is what I did when I disassembled the rear. But here I'm going to go ahead and just set it to the side. Now the front, unlike the rear, does have a screw here, and that's because this takes a lot of impacts. It's the front bumper that holds this plate there and the suspension pins. So just an extra measure that Traxxas took, place that here, was to add a screw there. So now this plate will just lift up, and usually there's a side that's a little sharper and a side that's a little rounded. You put the sharper side toward the plastic, but it's not that crucial in these vehicles. The main thing that you're gonna want to notice is one side is flat all the way, that goes toward the bottom, and this side is kind of at an angle, somewhat rounded. That rounded portion goes up on the vehicle. All right, now I can release the pins. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that pin, remove this one as well. So I'll remove both of them. Now the arms will come loose. So if you have to replace the arms, now you can go ahead and remove the arm. And there it is. So that arm is now free. And here, we're gonna remove this screw right in there. Now this one does not have the factory bell crank, so if you do remove the bell crank, these are some of the steps you will have to take. So this goes to the bell crank, and that's it. So we have completely disassembled this portion here. Now I will go ahead and continue with this, and then I'll move back to this. So after this, everything is very straightforward and easy. In order to remove the arm, I'm just gonna guide you and tell you what to do. Remove this pin, this will come out, and then the arm will just slip out. One of the things to the arm to notice is there is a left and a right. The arms will be labeled L for left, R for right. These arms were replaced with RPM because, well, he broke the factory ones. He broke one, put one RPM arm on there. Instead of replacing both of them, he just went ahead and waited until the other one broke, which didn't take him that long, to be honest, to break. Here, you're gonna need a nut driver or a wrench, and then a 2mm driver, and then you're just gonna loosen this. This will come out. One thing to note is the little flange, these little things here. On this side, on the inside, there's one that is wider than the other. The wider one goes toward the nut, so it's gonna go away from the knuckle. The knuckle is very simple to remove. You just remove this top screw and this bottom screw. And once you remove these, this will slide out. That's really all that you have to note. If you watched the rear disassembly, it's going to be the same thing with the front. You're going to remove the hex. The hex may be somewhat of a pain to remove, which is fine. I guess you can manage. Just grab a flathead screwdriver, stick it in there, and it should eventually come out. There we go. That's not a flathead, that's just what I happen to have. There, so this will come out, remove the pin. Once you remove that pin, this will slide out. And all you have to do is just stick a driver. There's two bearings, one on the outside, one on the inside. Actually, no, there's only one. There's only one bearing. So there's only one bearing, just push that bearing out. You can use a variety of things to push it out. This is too big. You can just use a driver, gently press there, here. Do not press on the rubber seal because you can damage the rubber seal. Just press on the bearing itself and it should pop out. Then after that you can clean them, you can re-lube them, right? You can stick a little pick in there, remove the seal, clean them, oil them again, and then put the seal back on. It's pretty simple. Once you've done a few, it's pretty simple. In the beginning, it gets a little scary because you're always afraid that you'll damage the seal. But then after that, just put this back in, stick the pin in there. Now, he still has a plastic hex here, and this is the only one. I'm not sure why. I would have just replaced them with aluminum. He has 3 aluminum and 1 plastic. I mean, somewhat understand why. He likes replacing things once they break, but plastic hexes, they will destroy your wheels, so it's better that you just get aluminum ones. All right, to reassemble it, just do the reverse process. So we have this here, I'll leave that there. I'm gonna move on to the main components now. And this here, the easiest thing will be to remove the front shock tower. So to remove the front shock tower, you're gonna have these 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gonna look just like the rear end, but I'm going through and doing this just in case you did not see the rear end teardown. That way you can see the front end. And it makes sense because maybe you only need to work on the front end, or at this point in time, it's the front end that you're concerned about. I do recommend you watch the other videos. But you're just gonna remove these 4. And then the front shock tower will just pop off. It'll just remove upward. The other thing too is if you're replacing the front shock tower, maybe you broke it, this is what you would do. You would remove those 4 screws, you would remove the 2 top shock screws, and then those 2 screws there for the body mounting system, you would remove those as well, along with the screws for the links. So there's 1 link, the other link I have already removed, and then the front shock tower will come off. You just pull up on it. So here we go, 1 more screw and then I will show you. Just be careful, and the reason why is as soon as you remove that shock tower, there will be a gap in the case. So you don't want anything to fall in there. So again, just be careful, but this will just slide right off, just like that. And that is it. So again, I didn't disassemble everything because I didn't want to. But this would be it. So this is how you would remove the shock tower. So that one, the 2 links, these 4 screws, and then you just replace the mounting system. So I will leave this off to the side. I will remove this steering one just to make it easier for me to work with everything over here. And I'll place it right next to the identical one for the other side. And we'll push that off. And here we go. I'm going to go ahead and remove this side here. Originally, my friend installed the MIP shafts, but they kept falling apart. So we decided to go with the Traxxas ones. That's why he has the Traxxas ones. And I believe the Traxxas shafts are the better choice, to be honest. The MIP was not really satisfied with the product. It just kept falling apart. Here we go. All right, so you have the 2 little set screws for the MIP, and this feels stuck. So if it's stuck, beat it with a hammer. I'm joking. Just going to wiggle this, and eventually it should come apart. I can see it coming apart. There. Yeah, the machining on there is, the tolerances are too close. Great, so to replace the bulkhead, this is all you would do. You would remove these two screws here, and then when you remove these two screws, you can then remove these two here for this bridge that goes under there. So it looks like a little V right in here, right in there. And once that is loose, then you can go ahead and just lift this, but be careful. You may have some bushings in there or bearings. Hopefully you have bearings. But if you bought the if you did not buy the VXL version, you probably have Teflon bushings in there or some type of plastic type bushing. If you have one of the other models, you are probably going to have bearings. The Platinum, I believe, has bearings. The Ultimate has bearings. Although the Platinum, I believe, was discontinued, which is a shame because that was the best one to go with, especially if you already had a transmitter. If you were new to the RC, then the Platinum is great because the Ultimate is great because it comes with a transmitter. But anyway, that aside, that's all you would do for the steering. Now we're going to access the differential. So for the differential, we have just two screws that we have to worry about if you want to actually remove the entire thing, although you don't have to. So if you remove these two screws right in here, this will release. So the back part of the case will release. Since I am not interested in that, I'm just going to slide this out. So if you just want to access the differential, this just slides right out. And that is it. And that's your differential. So you can go in and re-grease it. This has plenty of grease. I'm not worried about the grease. Spins freely, everything is good. And when I did the rear teardown, I actually opened up the differential. It's just those 4 screws, those 2 and these 2. And then you can access the inside. So I'm not going to do that again. Now, once in a while, you may have to replace the pinion, that as well. So this, and again, you just remove those 4 screws and then you can swap that. For here, what you will need to do is, if you notice, you're going to have a set screw right in there. And it's very similar to the set screw on the shafts. Well, the stock shafts, not those MIP shafts. It's just this long thing, and once you do that, I'm going to put my finger there, this will just slide out. Once this slides out, this will just push in. So you would just do this and then just push in, and that will just go through. And then you can also access the bearings. So you're going to have a bearing on the outside, a bearing on the inside. There will be a gap between the two. Let me go ahead and push this out. Right in there. There will be a gap between the 2 bearings, which you're probably not going to be able to see in the camera. And then you would just do that. That one fell out pretty easy, but then you would do the same thing here, and then it'll push out, and then you just pop them back in. So that being said, these would just be pressed in. So it would go in there, and then you would press that one in, and that would be it. And then you can grab this, slide it in, and that is all you have to do. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and line this up. That will go in there. And we will just drive this in here. And we will go ahead and line this in here. All right, now one thing to note is the gear. If you open up the differential, you take it out and you don't know where it goes. On the front, it's gonna go on the left side. So on the rear, it goes on the right. So they go in opposite directions. So front goes left, rear goes right. So as you can see, it's on the left. Right. If you make a mistake and you put this one on backwards, then hopefully you made a mistake and you put the rear one on backwards, and then instead of going forward, you'll go in reverse. Instead of going in reverse, you'll go forward, but then you can just change the trim. Well, you can reverse the transmitter and it'll still work. But if you put them both on the same side, your tires are going to be spinning opposite of each other. They'll either want to be spinning away or toward each other, so your vehicle's not going to go anywhere. So keep that in mind. So now to reassemble, again, you would have some bushings or bearings in here. You would slide this back in. Same thing over here, slide it in. Place the bridge, connect those. This just connects in here, and then you have this guy right in here, which goes this way. So that's one of the things when you put this link, right, this is going to be toward the right side because the servo's on the right side. Just make sure this goes up. So the one that curves up. All right. Now once we have that, you can slide the shock tower back on. And now we're going to grab the screws. Now we have the long screws. The long screws are going to go on the bottom. And then the short screws are going to go on the top. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten the top ones first. And then I'll tighten the bottom. You can tighten the bottom first. And then the top. And again, snug, do not over tighten this, you will damage the plastic. And make sure that you're using quality tools. I've said this in previous videos. Good tools make the hobby more enjoyable because you will be modifying things, you will be repairing things. If you use just cheap Allen wrenches that maybe came with a kit or that you've had lying about, the wrench will eventually wear out and that will damage the heads of your screws, and it's going to be a pain to remove them. Good quality tools to go with, you could go with MIP. MIP makes these tools that I'm using, great quality tools. They're still in great shape, and I cannot even remember how many vehicles I've built just from kits, how many kits I've built, nor how many vehicles I've actually repaired. But it's a lot, and they're still in great shape. Alright, so this one here, let's try it again. All right. There we go. And there. That'll go in. Alright, we shall place the arm in here, so you just line it up. We'll grab a pin, just slide a pin inside, and that is it. So that one is there. So now I can go ahead and place this link right there in between, and I will grab one of these countersunk screws, and it's going to screw in through the bottom. And again, snug, you don't want to over tighten. All right, there, pin is set, perfect. And we have the sway bar. At this point, I could go ahead and install the damper here. And here, All right, so we are finished with one side. Now we can go ahead and do the other side. So we're going to move this here. Assumption is you've already gone ahead and screwed that in. If you're replacing the mounting system, body mounting system, those two screws there. So I shall go ahead and grab this, and I will do the shaft first. So shaft, you go ahead and place in here, line it up, drop this in. Here we go. Right in here. All right, let's see. So do I want to go with the shock first? No, I do not. So I'm going to go ahead and just do the link. Because then the shock is going to get in the way. No, it wouldn't get in the way. Could have done the shock first. But anyway, since I removed the shock first, I'm going to go ahead and install it last. Just follow that order. Although some of you could say I'm not really following that order because of the links. I actually removed this link after. But again, some things you can get away with not doing in order, some things you cannot. And that is snug. Alright, and we will go. So this is where the sway bar, first shock hole, second shock hole. And we will go ahead and mount this. Now this is the way my friend had them mounted. Usually I would mount them the other way with the large flange up against the screw. Or wait, hold on, let me think about it. Nope, this is the correct way. You want the small one up against the screw. And this one. Although it may not make a difference. I don't know, put in the comments below, does it make a difference? Which is the correct way to mount it? Whichever way it came out of the factory, right? All right, here we go. So I'm mounting it the way it was. That's my reference. Great. So now at this point, we go ahead and grab this plate. So again, that rounded part, this here, this is the top part. The flat side goes toward the bottom. Then I can go ahead and place this screw right in here. Right in there. And then this will go in here. That'll go right in here. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just slip the sway bar in through there. And that is the last thing I have to button up. So I'm going to need my 2.5. Right in here. All right. And there. And that's it for the front end. So the front end, that was the teardown and reassembly. So now on the next one, we're going to go ahead and just mate everything up. We just have to install the servo first on the tub. But anyway, other than that, thank you for watching.
What? Oh, my hair! My tongue! My rod!